You're watching your local television network, TSPN. And now, authors, writers, books, and beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now, authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Hi, welcome to our June Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond show. My name is Kathy Fellure, and I'm your host, and I'm thrilled to have you join us. This month, I am genre hopping. I have local authors here with books that are memoir, nonfiction. I would call Tammy's contemporary women's, which is what I write, and Betty's historical fiction. And Betty and I also write children. So we're going to hop around from genre to genre and let you experience all the different ones, and maybe you can pick your favorite. I'm going to start with talking about the wonderful bookstore downtown that just really downstairs from us that we all frequent, Hiding Company. It is a marvelous showcase of rare, new, and used books. I can't go in there and spend less than a couple hours, good luck, but you really still have to try it. They have a variety of clothing for Victorian shows. They have renovated their upstairs, and now they have Baker Street West, where they'll have Mystery Murder Theater very soon, hopefully in September. So there's a lot there for you to experience and enjoy, and there's also calendars seasonally and many other things. So you might stop in, and I would start upstairs if I was you and work your way down. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to introduce my guests first. This is Tammy Travaskis on my right, and Betty Weatherby and Helen Bonner on my left. And we're going to start with your latest publication, and I'm going to start with Tammy, just the one, and tell us about it, and please show that gorgeous cover.
My latest book is titled My Mercedes. It came out a month and a half ago or so. And it's a coming-of-age tale about raising a daughter. The mom's kind of a helicopter mom, like they call them these days, and is really involved in the girl's life. And she goes along doing everything for her daughter and really gets upset when the daughter kind of takes her own path in life.
Kind of over-momming a little, maybe.
Yeah, kind of one of those.
And can you tell me about your cover? I love your cover.
Oh, I just picked the cover out of, it's called Photoshop. The publisher sent me to Photoshop, and you can just pick from literally millions of covers. And for whatever reason, I just liked this one. In the story, the family does take a trip to Hawaii, a vacation to Hawaii, and I thought this cover kind of looked like Hawaii.
It blends with your shirt beautifully.
That wasn't planned.
And it's very beachy.
Very beachy.
Yes. All right, well, thank you, Tammy. And Betty, can you share your most recent book?
My latest just came out is Shingi, The Wind Blows Free, and it's about a story of struggle and triumphant survival of faith in God. Shingi's a West African immigrant to America. She meets a fella that she gets into some unhappy adventures and ends up going back to live with Mary, who brought her to America in the first place. And they have a lot of tragedies that happen, and then Shingi's life kind of is all planned out, then it turns upside down, and it just tells what happens to her. She goes back to a farm and ends up living and surviving tragedy. My daughter did the covers, by the way, for all my books, and I love her artwork.
What state is that cover?
She ends up, this is in Virginia, but she marries a fella in New Orleans. And so it starts out in New Orleans and what happens to her there. And the family that she marries into owns, they're African-American family, and they own a restaurant, a Cajun place. And so she just blends right in and fits right in. And she speaks French, and they think she's French because of French West Africa. But then her husband, he's a trouble from the get-go, and so things happen to him, and she ends up going back to live with Mary on the farm.
And the name is unusual, so I'm going to ask you about that name.
The name Shingi, I just sort of made it up. I do mission work in Africa every year or so, and get the newspapers from Nairobi, and you read different events that happen to people there, and I see these names and I just change them a little bit so they're not a particular person, and make up my own story from things that I've seen there and experienced.
Very creative. Thank you. And Helen, you want to share your most recent
Sure, I
publication?
just want to comment that I spent some time in Africa too, so it sounds like a fascinating
Yeah,
book.
you'd enjoy it.
For me.
It is a fascinating book.
Okay, my latest is called Misdemeanors, and it is not autobiographical, but it tells the story of all of us in my age group of the 70s, when I call it sometimes when we all woke up. And I don't know what that symbol meant. What the back cover says is, set afire by the new women's movement, Jennifer Renfree leaves her husband and daughter in suburbia to explore the exciting possibilities out there. Landing a job at the state capitol. She is unprepared for the temptations of powerful men, the spontaneous sex of singles clubs, the politics of hippie communes, or anti-war protests. And although the book is not autobiographical, everything in it happened to either me or friends of mine at the time. I felt that it was time that the people who were there tell the story of the 70s.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And we have different genres already, as you can see. So, Betty, I'd like you to just talk briefly about your trilogy there, because this is the one that's done now, and you're on another one.
Can I ask Helen first, where'd you get the picture?
I got the picture online, and I got it before I even finished the book. I got it before I finished the book, and I thought it was just a model at the time, but I loved the scene.
Okay.
Because it represents when my character is driving her boss's Mercedes and having a little affair with him and wondering what she's doing with her life.
Show them the picture on the back.
Oh, on the back. This is Gloria Steinem and myself. Gloria was, of course, my idol back then, and still is, I think. And she was in Folsom, not very, 2 years ago, and I got a chance to talk with her again because I got to be close to her back there in the 70s. An incredible woman.
Thank you. I was just curious about that. This is the first book of the trilogy. This is Charlotte, and it's about a young woman in West Africa in World War II, and her family all gets murdered, and she stows away on a ship to come home to America and tells what happens to her. Then this one, the second one, Charlotte doesn't know it, but her mother does survive, and she comes home on a military hospital ship, and Shingi comes with her too, by the way. On this book, I tell stories, true stories that happened to soldiers that I've researched and I've added in, and also interviewed people, and I've added those in on the ship. It makes it really interesting. Just get lost in research. And then, of course, then there's Shingi. That's the third one. And then the fourth book I'm working on now, it'll be when Charlotte came over, she met a fella that his father owned the ship, and she met him, and they become engaged. The fourth book will be about what happened to David. And he actually ends up in France, and it's still the wartime. And has all kinds of things happen to him there.
Thank you. Thanks, Betty. And I'm going to go straight to Tammy when we come back. I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple other things right now. I have a book here this is a book that I'm currently reviewing. And most of us also read other authors' books and do reviews. Maybe not always, once in a while. This one was sent, just got it. So this is Harvest of Gold. It's not the first in the series. And I've heard of this author, Tessa Ashar. I'm very curious about it. It takes place in biblical times. It's historical, and it's during the rebuilding of the wall, when Nehemiah rebuilt the wall. And it's one of my favorite parts of the Israelite history. So I'm really excited to get into it. Treachery, opposition, and a God-given success. So there's a hidden message in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're readers too. That's why I like to introduce a couple books every show, something you may not have heard of. I have another one that just came in the mail yesterday. This is called Silent Obedience, and this is written with another author friend of mine, Lois, with she's Vietnamese, and it's her story in Vietnam. Very interesting background here. I'll briefly cover it because I loaned her slides my papa took when they lived there. They lived there when President Kennedy was assassinated, when there were advisors there before the full-blown war. And he took a lot of pictures that were on site, and the slides were lost. She took 5 of them for the book. And so there's a lovely inscription here from her in Vietnamese. And this has been a journey, especially with the setback, because there were different covers intended. So it's kind of reflective of different types of journeys. There's never always what you think it's going to be, is it? Yeah. So anyway, we would love to hear from you, what you read also, what you're interested in, what you like, what you do in... some people prefer nonfiction over fiction. Some people, like me, really prefer fiction, and I love historical fiction. And we have quite a variety here just on the table right now. So when we come back and the ladies get into a little bit more of their books, and Helen has quite a variety, I think you'll enjoy sharing with us. So we're real excited again to have you come back after the break, and we'll share a little bit more, and maybe you can learn something new. Thank you.
Television Network, TSPN, and now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Hi, welcome back. Glad you joined us. We're going to go straight to Tammy as she shares about her first book. And it's been a year in between the books.
Yes.
Why don't you share about Raising Jacob?
Actually, Raising Jacob came out in the fall, so it hasn't been quite a year. Raising Jacob was my first story, and I didn't know I could even write a book. I don't have any experience as a writer or any special training. I kept a daily journal every day. I have for years, since I was in high school. And one day I was looking back through my journal. We had kind of been through a really rough, stormy patch with our teenage son. And when I looked back through the journal, I thought, wow, this could make a book. And so I came to work, and I talked to people I worked with. And I had an employee at work, Annette, who loves to write and has a teaching credential as a teacher, and so she said, I'll help you and I'll edit for you. And so I started giving her chapter by chapter of my story, and she would give me little notes, and maybe this doesn't make sense, or maybe you need to add more description here. And my first take through with my book was going to be a true story, and it was just going to be all of our names and our business and everything the way it actually happened. But after having my mom read it, my husband read it, and even myself, there was some things that kind of repeated themselves, and it was more like a journal. And so, and it was heartbreaking because there's some pretty bad stuff he did in there. It was pretty dramatic. And so my mom says, I don't know if you want to put out a true story. And so I came back to Annette, and I says, I don't know. I'm probably not going to do anything with my book. And she says, well, I write children's stories, and they're really fun. Fiction is fun. She says, just change it and make it into a fictional story. And she was right. When I started back at the typewriter, and I went chapter by chapter, and I changed everyone's names, and I made us a new business, and in this we own a cafe, and it just was a lot more fun, and I was able to take out things that didn't quite make sense or things that repeated themselves, because, sometimes teenagers do the same thing over and over again. Well, that gets boring in a story. So, and then also I was able to make up a happy ending. So that made it so after the tears and the drama, it ends up all happy, and so that's the kind of books I like to read. So I hope that's the same with our viewers.
So did that help getting the critiques, the chapter-by-chapter critiques?
Very much so.
Yeah,
very much so.
That's what Annette used to do in our group. And Betty and I all of these books, all 3 of her books, I critiqued in the manuscript form. chapter by chapter. Huh?
Yeah.
And I think most writers, no matter how experienced they are, they need other people to take a look at, other writers to take a look at their work, because we often don't see it.
No, we
The
miss
first
a lot.
time I submitted to the group my first chapter, I was like sweating bullets. I was so frightened. And
It
then
is
when
scary.
somebody would go around, they'd say, "You need to do this, need to do that," and I was just like, I really was. I was scared to death.
I think mostly amateur writers, it was a beginner group. Most people had never critiqued before. I had. My daughter formed it with me, and she'd been critiquing since she was 13.
Mm-hmm.
There was things
Me
that
too.
I found that, in one chapter I mentioned that for dinner we drank a blue moon. And Annette
Nobody knew what that was.
put on there, she says, "What's a blue moon?" So, there's things like that I didn't even think of. And I had changed the dates a little bit so I could go forward a little bit in time to make my happy ending. And I talked in one part about a movie. And when I sent the story in and through the publisher, that I paid extra to have it edited, and they sent it back and they said, this movie wasn't out at this time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something you have to be
You have to
careful of.
research
Yeah,
it.
so I had to change up my
Very
dates a little bit or put in a different movie. So yeah, there was it was a big learning experience for me.
One time I put, and Kathy will remember this, I put, and it was the military part, that the fella had his Mae West on.
Oh, yeah.
And this gentleman in our group, that I thought he would pick up on that right off, he didn't know what that was. So then I had to explain it was a life jacket, a Mae West life jacket. Then the next time I mentioned it, I didn't have to explain what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it surprised me. I thought everybody knew what that was.
We make assumptions and we can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to.
You know why they were called Mae West, don't you?
Yes, I do.
We can figure that one out, I think.
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
funny.
you'd think a guy would, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Helen, do you want to share a little bit about a couple of your other books there?
Yes,
Because you have a variety in your genres there.
I would like to, because I'm especially proud of these two, because they've both won national awards.
Yay.
And the Dolphin Papers was a finalist for the Eric Hoffer Award, and that's an award that's given for books that have more meaning than the story would appear to at the beginning. It sounds like a Frankenstein story, and it kind of is, but really I'm on the bandwagon for dolphins in this book.
Can you show your card, too? Because I just love your
Sure.
card with you and the dolphin there.
Okay, and here's...
Oh, right, there's a bigger one on the back here.
Oh yeah, there's one there. That's me riding. Just keep it that way. That's me
dolphin.
riding a dolphin there, and one of my reasons for riding it is I think we humans tend to be a little bit arrogant about being a superior species, but dolphins can give us a run for our swim for our money. This one was a finalist for the whoops, wrong one. Okay, I put the wrong sticker on this one. This one was a finalist for the Smart Wit Award, and the Smart Wit Award is for books that make people think beyond maybe even the margins of the book, that they leave people thinking. And the subtitle of this book is What If There Were No Death? And it's more fun to talk at a book club to people who will talk about how that relates to the book, and because it's kind of this character in the book goes from Bishop up in the mountains to Los Angeles to Baghdad, and what's that got to do with the subtitle there? Well, this character doesn't believe that any of us really dies, and that makes her a very, very different kind of a person. She's not as scared as most of us are.
Interesting.
So book clubs love to talk about it.
Discussion topic.
Yeah.
What about First Love
Oh,
Last?
First Love Last, this is truly autobiographical. And the time it happened to me, which was about 6 years ago, my first husband, high school sweetheart, divorced husband, father of our 2 children, showed up at a class reunion, and what came out of that the end of 50 years of hating each other was, to me, a miracle, because I felt it was so miraculous I just had to write about it exactly the way it was. The emails between us, his being scared to death that if he met his sons, they would say, "Where have you been all my life?" And it was just an incredible time in all of our lives. Miraculous healing is the only thing I can call it. It's about miraculous healing of old wounds and scars.
It's a lot of forgiveness.
About forgiveness.
Miraculous Healing sounds like a good name for a book.
Yeah, yeah.
Writing is very healing, I found.
It is.
It is.
It is.
It's kind of nice to get it all out, get it off your chest, you know.
Yeah, and everybody's got those wounds, and
Yeah.
we carry them around and feel like we're the only ones who do, and then we find out, no, a lot of people dealing with things like that, and they can hang on to it or they can let go of it.
Yeah.
After you wrote Raising Jacob, did you feel different?
Yes. Yeah. Definite forgiveness. I love to start projects. I love crafts. I love art. I love, writing. And this was one of the first big projects that I completed. So I felt a sense of accomplishment, but I also felt like by the time I finished the book, that most of the incidents were a few years in the past, and I kind of felt like forgiveness and felt like, okay, it's time to move on. It's time to start the next chapter or the next book. And, you don't really forget the things that have happened, but stop reliving them or rethinking about them or staying awake at night worrying about them,
Or holding on.
You can get more objective about it.
Exactly.
So tell me, what did your son think about you telling his personal story?
He had mixed feelings, to tell you the truth. I gave him a hard copy. In my package, I got just a few hard copies, and I thought, well, since the story's about him, I'll give him one of them. And I really wanted him to read my book and to kind of see, like, what happened in our home. There was a point in time where we had to kick him out of our house.
Oh.
Things had just got so bad
Tough love?
that we just, we had to kick him out. And he kind of told people, or even told us, oh, well, Mom and Dad were just much happier after they kicked me out. Like, they thought we were just having a party because we got rid of this troubled son.
Which I'm sure
And I
was
wanted
not
him
true.
to see that that wasn't true. That wasn't the case. We were very, very worried about him, and we still loved him dearly. We just couldn't handle the everyday, chaos and fighting and trouble. And we have two sons, so we had to protect our younger son as
Did
well.
the other son kind of feel lost in the shuffle?
The older brother was getting all the attention. Our younger son is much quieter, much more shy. Our older son was always very hyper, very talkative,
More noticed.
very noticed. And so our younger son, did kind of feel lost in the shuffle, I'm sure. And so...
So when your older son read the book, did he become more understanding of what he'd put you through?
I don't believe he's ever actually read the whole book. I think he's read bits and pieces, but he's changed. He's grown up, thank goodness. He's a much better person now, and we've changed also. I found with going to counseling and just with healing, you kind of have to let people become their own individual, and you have to kind of accept them the way they are. I was very angry that he did so poorly in school. That was a constant battle. School, grades, homework. Well, luckily he did graduate high school, and he's finished with school, so that was a big relief. No more fighting over homework. And, of course, wanted him to go off to college, wanted him to have a great career. And he's
going to do what he does.
Yeah, he's had little seasonal jobs. He's worked at the pool as a lifeguard. He's worked up at Kirkwood as a ski lift operator.
He's been my lifeguard then, for certain.
I'm sure that he was.
Yeah.
This last season, he was a bus driver up there. It was a really funny story because here it is freezing cold and snow, and he's driving his bus around with big sunglasses and a big sombrero listening to the Beach Boys. So people told us, I'd love to ride on Brian's bus. And this summer, he's working up at a campground up above Pinecrest, up near Bishop, I understand. And he's a campground host, maintenance guy, and he's living out of an old, rundown trailer.
Finding his niche.
Just doing his thing.
Doing his thing. Outdoors is, his thing, and not much in the way of paperwork, so he doesn't have to write reports, so he's quite happy about that.
Isn't that interesting? So you don't know when you pick up a book what's it all about.
That's right.
You do not know what's in there. So come back and we'll share a little bit more with you. We're happy to have you join us. We'll see you then.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. You're watching your local television network, TSPN, and now back to Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to Authors, Writers, Books, and Beyond.
Hi, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. We're going to go into this segment sharing the different ways that the four of us prepare our writing. You see written, published books in front of you, but there's a process we go through long before that happens, and some of us outline, some of us journal. I have a journal I started a long time ago. For my children's books are published, but this novel is not. And this is from quite a while ago, and I was reading it before I came. Nothing's the same. I outlined my characters, their personality traits. I gave them siblings, and it really didn't even... Her name, Emily, remains the same. That's about it. and in the length of time, because also when we're writing, our characters take on a persona of their own.
Yes,
and they begin to speak to us and let us know that we're going in a wrong direction. Could they bring us back? And we listen to those voices. At least I do.
I do too.
So I know
Very
here
much.
I have a little page I stuck on here. This is, someone had used the word when I was downtown Sacramento, the word prating. And it fit my character, my 90-year-old grandmother. And so I wrote it down. I happened to have this because I just bought it, and just post-noted it in here, and then later inserted it into the book. I think it's chapter 18. So we never know. We're those people that we are always listening for what other people say. And I'm going to hold this up real briefly just so you can get a little peek. I have to be very careful because it's full of stuff. But you can see the outline basis here where I gave sibling characters, I pick names, I look up the meaning of the names. I don't want to have a name that has a different meaning. Character traits. And then I also journaled other things. I'm going to a writer's conference here. And so it's a helpful tool.
Your journal is so pretty. Your handwriting is gorgeous.
This page is. Thank you.
I was going to say, you should see my journals. Nobody could possibly read them except me.
Yes.
Mine too. Mine too. I found that a lot of times thoughts for my story would come to me like in the middle of the night. So I ended up with a little notepad next to the bed with an ink pen, and I would get up in the middle of the night and I would jot it down. Well, I didn't want to turn on the lights and wake people up, so I'm jotting it down in the dark, and I had a hard time the next day going, what was I writing? What came to me?
I've done that in the car. Every time.
Yeah. I've done that in the car too.
So do we all write by hand
pages
still?
that you unfold.
Do we all still write by hand to some degree? You use an electronic device, but you still write by hand to some degree?
I wrote by hand almost,
100%?
well, before I took it to the typewriter, yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote it and rewrote it all by hand, and then I didn't want to enter it into the computer, into the book until it was good.
Good.
See, no, I did that at the beginning, but now I actually write right on the word processor.
I was going to say I did too, and probably that has to do with both Betty and I probably started writing when they were just typewriters.
I did too.
I can't see that. It's too hard to see and then write, and then I can't do that.
I miss the typewriter, but I love the corrective possibilities with the computer.
Absolutely. I don't miss the typewriter
I loved the sound of that.
Ding, and then ding, so you know you're making progress.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would feel so full when I could pull a finished page off. And that page was finished, and then I'd roll in another one. Yeah, it's a little different feel with a computer.
Well, and I would find that I would take my writings to the computer, and I thought, oh, I've got a number of pages here. But then when you type it up on the computer, it might be one page. I'm like, wow, I thought I had a lot more than this.
Yeah.
Now, originally, didn't you start writing by hand at all?
Oh, way back then, yes. I would started everything by hand then. And one thing, when you're writing on a typewriter, you make a mistake and you've got to start all over again, or you know, all that kind of thing. So things were very different then. They took enormous amounts of time for a finished manuscript because one mistake, you had to start over.
All over again.
And you certainly couldn't move this paragraph like you do when you're writing on a computer.
So nice.
Or change your mind and just
move
it all over. Oh, it was an enormous task, and to say nothing of carbon copies. Oh my gosh. So at that time, it was easier for me to actually write by hand and then transfer it when I was ready to
do
really
it.
get serious about it. But now, a computer, it's so easy to change your mind about something, to move the scene over, to
It's easier.
all of that is so much easier. I just feel like I was born at the right
Time.
Yeah.
One of my writer friends, she puts everything on her iPhone.
Mhm.
If she hears something, she texts a message to herself and emails herself,
Oh, wow.
and so she won't forget it. And then she can use it later, pull it from her email, and
So she's doing that instead of this.
although she is a lifelong journaler, and
So she
she's
still
only in
does.
her mid-30s.
Oh, but she's an electronic journaler. Yeah.
Well, she has her electronic. I'm surprised by this, because she's young enough. I would think she would be strictly electronic, but no, she likes to have. There's always a half version of this in the back seat or
I
front
see.
seat of her car.
Yeah.
And like
She
you
does
said,
both.
paper. I always have a spiral notepad by my bed, under my bed. Drives my husband nuts. And I have learned. I used to flip on the light, but when you're married, you write in the dark a lot.
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Yeah, so
That's true.
I'm going to ask Betty now if you would share your children's books.
Okay, well, I'm going to...
Let me get my water out of the way.
This is my very first one, and on the back I have me and my dog. They're all about Pepper, who passed away about 3.5 years ago.
Can you?
A little Yorkie that I love.
There's a picture of Pepper right here.
Yes, and there's a picture right here also.
Oh, that was dark
Yes.
stuff.
And that's my daughter Colleen does all my pictures, so that's on the first book. The rest, I don't have it there. So Tammy asked about going to Dillon's Beach. So it's north of Point Reyes, so I thought I'd just show it. There's elephant rocks there, these huge rocks that look like elephants marching, and they're really interesting. So we always took the same route. We went, of course, through Stockton, or Lodi, pardon me, and so I wanted to show our route, because it meant so much to the kids. First, of course, we had to get all ready to go, and then Pepper had to have his little chewies. And everybody had to get in the car. And the story is always from the dog's point of view, all of the stories. Well, here, he didn't like all the cars, because they were all nasty in the city, and we're country people. Then we went across the bridges through the Delta, and it shows little Z's. He's sleeping in the car while the boats are going under the bridge. And Colleen always makes little critters, and that's kind of cute. Then we go by the Jelly Belly factory, but she put Jelly Bean factory. She says, "Mom, I can't put Jelly Belly. They'll sue me." No. And her cars look like jelly beans. But the kids, when they were little, they thought that was so terrific. And then we went by not Great America,
Six Flags.
no, what's it called with the... No, this is
The
the
boardwalk?
one. No.
Okay.
Roller coaster.
coaster.
It's in Vallejo. It's in Vallejo, everybody.
Oh, that's
Great
right.
America.
Is it called Great America
Six
now?
Flags Great America.
Oh, it used to have another name in old days, but we went by there.
Oh, it used to be Marine World.
Yeah,
Africa,
there we go.
USA.
Marine
And
World,
now in-
Africa, USA.
It's Great American.
So yeah, I'm all aging us here. And then we turned toward Petaluma, and there was one of those miniature horse farms. It was called Pegasus Ranch. So she made up the Flying Horse Ranch. And then, of course, she had to put the dog in there. Then we got there, and there's the head of the big elephant rocks. And there's Pepper.
Puppy dog.
He smells salt in the air. But it just goes on to say what happened to him at the beach. And so that was the first adventure. This is, all of these are true stories, except you'll see where there's a little hyperbole in there, or exaggeration. This is about an event in Jackson, and Pepper made a new friend, and it was a skunk on our front porch, who skunked him right in the face. And it was an unhappy time of him meeting up with a skunk. And I wanted to show my picture that Colleen did of me because it's hysterical. I looked out the window, and there he was getting skunked. And then he started running the house, and I screamed terribly. That's me. That is a true picture. So it tells about what happened in that adventure. And I'll tell you right now, tomato juice does not work. This one is in the old days. You take your garbage to the dump. And it's about how you can recycle at the dump. And my brother Richard, this was his old pickup truck. It was called a Cameo. And so he chased the turkeys and ran off over the field because he came home full of stickers. And I said, what in the world happened to my dog? And Richard said, I don't know. The last time I saw him was just his tail going over the hill. And then this was when we went to Vernal, Utah, to the dinosaur monument. And there he got to see the largest bone, if I can find it.
A doggy dream come true.
Oh, yeah. It was a huge, and those, if you ever get a chance to take your children there, it's an amazing place.
Oh, my goodness.
And there he is right there. And we didn't put any words on that page because
You don't need them.
we don't need any words there. And he got lost in the museum, and that's the story about that. And this is Pepper Smells a Rat. This is about when he chased a rat up a water drain pipe, and he got stuck in there.
I just bought that one.
And that's my father right there. His name is Roscoe. And then you see the rat here peeking in the window, and there's Pepper sleeping. So that's all about. I almost couldn't get him out of the drain pipe. He was in there, and I was crying and trying to get him out and everything else. And so my brother Richard was barbecuing, and I put a piece of steak on a string and held it there and dangled it until finally he came out to smell it, and I captured him. And the one that just came out is when we went to Bryce Canyon, and he slipped out from under my legs. And so I want to read on the back. I put Naughty Dog, and because he ran off and got in big trouble there. And so that's all about Bryce Canyon.
Great collection of books, and I
think those are much more interesting than C-Spot Run and things like
Okay.
that we had as kids.
We'll be right back in just a minute, and you can find a book for anybody, any little kid there that likes doggies and grandmas that have wonderful expressions, too. Thank you.
You're
Bye.
watching Amador County's local television network, TSP. And now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond. This program also streams live on the web at tspntv.com and can be watched on demand at tspntv.com or TSPN TV's YouTube channel. And now back to authors, writers, books, and beyond.
Hi, welcome back. Thank you for coming to finish the show with us. I'm Kathy again, and these are my guests, Tammy and Betty and Helen. And we're going to lead off talking about where you can find our books. And Helen and I have book signings coming up. And I want to be sure Tammy gets to talk to you about where she works here in town, because you can get her books there. This is one of my children's books. And I'll be selling all 4 of my books up in Kings Beach, Lake Tahoe. Same day as Helen's library event. I'll be up there July 12th at Sugar Pine Gifts, Cabin Decor and Gifts, and Barb Van Meer in there has carried my books just as they've come out, 1, 2, 3, 4. So she has me back once a summer, and so if you'd like to go to Tahoe for the day, it's directly across from Kings Beach.
Well, people can do both, because yours is 12th and mine's the 13th.
Yeah, and mine's from 11 to 2, and I do an interactive read with the children. And Helen is going to be here at the local library. Helen?
Local library on the 13th, which is a Saturday, and it'll be at 2 o'clock, and we're going to have things to eat and drink, and we're just going to probably talk our heads off, and it'll be a book signing. You can get my books there.
Chat with the author.
And chat with me, and challenge me when you feel. People like to challenge me, and I like that. I like that a lot. Like, why did you say this and that? And I enjoy that.
Oh, interesting. Children's authors don't get that so much.
Yeah. I always feel good about that. It means they're reading closely.
Yeah,
really good.
And in detail.
You just missed Betty's book launch for her new book. It was at Clark's Corner, but our group has a November 30th event where you can buy all our books. So you can go to Clark's for the literary read, and maybe these ladies will join us. And Tammy, you want to share about where you work here?
I work at Jackson Cleaners on Main Street in Jackson, right down the street from here. And my books are for sale there, and I'd be happy to sign them for people or talk to you about them. A lot of times people challenge me as well or ask questions. Or when I started this story, I kind of felt like, boy, I'm the only one out there that goes through this kind of stuff. You know, our family's really dysfunctional. And I've had people come in and go, oh my gosh, that's exactly like what happened in my home, or exactly like what my kid did to me. And so I really enjoy that. And it's a nice break from the everyday grind of work. I know a lot of people have said, oh, now that you're an author, do you still work? Yes, I still work. Unfortunately, I still work. So you can come see me at the Cleaners, and my books are also on Amazon, because I know a lot of people ask about the e-readers and the Kindles and all that, and it's on Amazon, and it's at local bookstores, too.
Yes, same with mine.
I think most of us, Wolf carries them downstairs at Hine & Company.
Yes.
Yes, mine
And
too.
where else are your books?
Mine are at Hine & Company. They're on Amazon. You can go on lulu.com. You can go on my website, which is H. Bonner Books. Guess that's enough for now.
Is there anywhere else?
They have them.
Are yours Barnes & Noble?
E-books only.
E-books only.
E-books
Mine too.
only. E-books only.
Yeah.
The Placerville News Company, of all things, has my books because I grew up there, so and they pay attention to what I do, so they have it too.
Ooh, that's
My
good
books
for
are at
them.
Well Read Books up by Safeway, and
Oh,
also
me too.
down at Bubblegum Books in Cedar Creek.
Yeah.
So I
Thank
think I've got
you.
all three of the bookstores.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I forgot about well-read books. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, because I love those.
Kate,
Yeah, they're so nice.
Kate's very good about carrying our books. Kate and her mom Connie there.
Yes.
And Bubblegum in Sutter Creek.
Yes.
And then Betty, where are yours online too?
Mine are online, Amazon.com, and also if anybody wants them, they just email me, brweatherby@att.net. And I'd
So if
be
someone
glad-
locally sees you somewhere, they can
Yeah.
approach you.
That'd be no problem. I'd be happy to. It would make me feel very happy.
Yes, we like that. Well, mine are, my publisher is Lulu Press Incorporated, like Helen, and so mine are there, and in the iBookstore, and Barnes & Noble, and Amazon. I have an author page on Amazon. My better sales are through Lulu and Amazon. And then the local bookstores, and the Tea Room used to carry them because they launched it in Sutter Creek. But the pharmacy in Ione carries them. You probably ought to talk to them about your children's books.
That'd be a good idea.
I think they're out right now, and they sell really well for us locally. You're always having to, go
Yours
and
must
replace
be
them.
sold at Tahoe because they play up Tahoe.
Yeah,
so
they're
much.
sold all over. I just did my first newsletter, and they're sold on all four shores of the lake: Zephyr Cove, Sand
I don't think
Harbor,
so.
Camp Richardson, historic Camp Richardson, and the Sugar Pine Gifts and the Robin's Nest. They're very close. Usually my clients aren't that close. And then Incline Village at the Potlatch. They're all over. They're in the Boatworks Mall and Squaw Valley, too.
That would be ideal.
Yeah, and
Yes.
Truckee would be interested in the history books. So she's wonderful there. Deborah Lane Fish. She used to have a bookstore in Tahoe City that I just missed. My family went there. Whenever we went on vacation, we went to the bookstore.
Yeah.
Family
funny.
event. So, is there any place you'd like your books to be carried that they aren't?
Well,
Out of town.
I'm going to, I'm just in the process of notifying aquariums and people like that about the dolphin papers because it's really a good story, but I also think those kind of places want to make sure that we're looking at the fact that we're destroying so many dolphins in the military world. And so I'm in the process of getting them into those places right now and hope that will be helpful.
Yeah.
And does anyone else have any other events?
Coming up?
Coming
I
up?
have another one in Placerville, but that's not till... I'm going to be gone to Sweden for a while, and I'll do one in Sweden while I'm
Yay.
there.
Wow.
That's out of town.
Yeah.
And
Say hi to our friend John for us. He's back there.
Oh.
From our group, John.
Oh.
Wet.
Well...
Are you going to Stockholm?
Yeah, we'll be, but we're going to visit my former AFS student and his family.
Oh,
And
lovely.
it'll be wonderful to be there, and I'm trying to study some Swedish before I go. But they, of course, they all speak English, and even
They
when
do.
the common expressions, they sound the same, even though it's not spelled that way. Like they say hi, and they say see ya, It's just spelled Sijiak.
Wow.
Have you taken Swedish?
No.
You're going on an adventure.
Yeah, so I'll have a reading there while I'm there, and then when I come back, there'll be one in Placerville. They're doing.
When is that one?
That one's not till October, I think. I'll clue you in on that, but.
And your books will be at our literary read.
Yeah.
It's our 5th one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's I'm getting contacted by the people where initially I had to contact them, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's a nice change.
Mhm.
Yes.
And Lulu's been really good. The exposure through them has been very helpful. They send helpful things. I want to mention this real quick before we go. This is the copyright permission and libel handbook that every writer should have. Doesn't matter where you write, fiction, nonfiction, especially with memoir. And a lot of people fictionalize nonfiction. You need to cover yourself legally in every aspect. Publishers are sticklers for this. Sometimes books don't get published because of the gray areas. So I highly recommend it. I probably bring it on every so many shows because I can't recommend it enough. It's very helpful and very illuminating to us as a writer because we don't know everything that's in these pages. We have to do the research.
Mm-hmm.
Something else that we do a lot of. Are you going to research when you're in Sweden and maybe write a book?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I hope so. I hope so. There's, the book that Sweden has put out recently that just sort of set the whole world on fire was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And I'm going to be fascinated to listen to what the Swedish people have to say about that.
Right.
Yeah, they like their version, their book, their movie.
So that'll be interesting for me to hear why they like that version better than the one.
I can tell you what John said.
Yeah.
He's part of our group that he'll be back in November. He'll be at the read. He said that so much gets lost in the translation. And his wife, Ann, is in the process of translating, and you'll be reading his books. His books are phenomenal.
Great.
Back into Swedish from English. And if they're not translated correctly, the Americans did not get the depth of what the Swedes had with their own language. And that makes perfect sense.
How can I get that depth if I can't read Swedish?
I don't know, but I'll give you their contact info while you're there.
Okay.
You need a good
I would like
translator.
that. I would like that, yeah.
I miss him. John, we miss you. Your Friday group, your novel to screenplay group is so lonely without you. And we're still trying to learn how to Skype you. Thank you for being patient with us, ladies. This hasn't been the same since you guys went back. So, ladies, one word that describes you as a writer-author.
Amateur for me.
I don't think she is. Do you?
No.
I wrote very simple. I didn't use a lot of big words. And
Honestly is how you wrote.
honestly, yes.
And that's very refreshing.
Thank
Do
you.
you have a second word, maybe?
Heartfelt.
I like
Good
that
one.
because I don't think you're an amateur.
Oh, thank you very much.
you
Thanks
are.
for that.
And ladies, I know I've asked you before, Betty. I know your word, but
I'd say adventure, female adventure. I hope.
I guess for me, it's not a very exciting word, but thoughtful. I guess behind all my books are something I hope people will think about.
I like that.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I had a friend recently just say who reads a lot. She threw a book down and she says, I want some book with some substance. I want more. So,
Well, I was at a book group once where somebody said about one of my books, well, it really made me think, and another woman said, I hate books that make me think.
I do too.
The deeper the better. The deeper the better.
So there's all kinds of readers.
I had someone tell me when they read my book, oh, I just cried all the way through your
Yeah.
book. And I thought, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you cry. And then I've had other people tell me, oh, that's a good thing. You
It
brought
is
out their
a good
emotion or, so.
And there's some writers that no matter how hard they try can never do that. So that's actually a
People
great
cry
thing.
on this one.
I'm interested in that one.
Yeah.
We're winding down. We're going to have to say goodbye to you. I hope you enjoyed the show. And by the way, my one word is creative. And so I really hope you come back next month. I am looking forward to our show with the guests we're having next month. Everybody, bye.
Bye, everyone.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.